Hey everybody, welcome back to Dagish America Presents. I'm your host, Ben Harrell, and I'm so happy you've joined us for the season finale of Season 6. Over the course of this season, we've put a spotlight on some of the individuals who are changing the face of our industry. Leaders who are challenging norms, innovating on the job, and redefining what it means to lead in pest management and fumigation. Today, on the last episode of the season, we're discussing a sometimes overlooked topic: women in leadership roles within the fumigation industry. The pest control industry is a tough, technical field traditionally dominated by men, but that's changing. More and more women are rising into leadership positions, proving that expertise, strategic thinking, and resilience have no gender. To help us explore this important conversation, I'm joined by Jess Coronado, president of RK Environmental. Jess has built an incredible career in our field and continues to lead with confidence, skill, and integrity. So please help me welcome Jess to the show. Jess, how are you doing today?
Ben, I'm doing great. A day above the ground's a great day, my friend. How about you?
I'm doing good. I like that saying. I always say, as long as I'm upright and taking in oxygen, I'm doing pretty good. So I'm going to do with you what I always do with everybody when we first get started, and that's just kind of ask you a little bit about yourself, give you an opportunity to kind of tell the audience a little bit about your story. So let's just start there. How did you get into the pest control industry, and what led you into this leadership role that you're in now?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So what got me into the pest management industry? It's interesting, and I put this together probably 5 or 10 years ago, that my pest management industry experience started before I even really knew it. I grew up in upstate New York, and my mother and father were big outdoors people, and my dad, big time hunter, worked with New York State Department of Environmental Conservation with farmers helping remove black bears. And it was this really incredible study. I was the photographer on the trip, but it was really the concept of helping farmers with wildlife, with a nuisance wildlife, a black bear that would go in and just decimate a lot of space. And it was just the coolest thing, from the preservation and, humans working with animals and all that stuff. I was fascinated by it. Well, fast forward, I decided to study finance and marketing to really open my horizons and career possibilities. But I worked on Wall Street for a little while, hated it, could not stand it. Just my passion wasn't there. It was a great experience, but I just didn't have that fire in my belly. So I went on, Ben, I'm going to date myself, monster.com. I don't even know if it's even a thing, but that was a big thing back in the day. And
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So I went to monster.com, and I saw this ad for outside sales, specifically to the food processing and healthcare industries. And the first thing I thought of, I was like, wow, that's awesome, because people always need food and healthcare. Now, the ad didn't reference what I was going to be selling, but it said I'd get a car and a laptop and benefits and a flexible schedule. And, I'm traveling around the tri-state area. And I was like, this sounds so great. So I went in for one interview, learned about the company, and I was so excited. Then I get to my second interview, and I meet with this gentleman who ended up being my sales manager. And he's like, we go through the questions, we meet each other, we hit it off. And he goes, let me ask you a question. Do you know what you're going to be selling? Now, looking back on this, I had a very fancy suit on. It's just what I was conditioned to do. And I was like, yeah, environmental services to really recession-proof industries. He's like, okay. Do you know what that
Yeah.
Do you know what that means? And I was like, not really, but it sounds cool. Do you want to tell me more about it? He goes, you know what? Ants, cockroaches, mice, all that stuff. You're going to sell pest control. And the dominoes clicked him. I was like, that's awesome. Sign me up. And he was like, really? And I thought that was a strange response, but he was honest. And I was like, yeah, let's go. So that's how I got into the space. I was here for a little while, and then I joined RK Environmental, I'm still with today, as a sales professional there first, and really grew up as we grew the organization. So I, grew the sales team, grew the marketing department, all the rest, and really kept operations and sales together. I always believed that throughout my career in sales, knowing that operations, we have to work together. It's like a football team, offense and defense. Everybody's got to be singing on the same sheet of music. We might be singing different notes, but we're all singing that same song. And continued to grow at the org and got very involved, really learned so much from the people around me, including you, Ben, when we worked together on several projects and you were in with the team, to the former owner of the company, Hank Hirsch, and the technical side, to another leader that we had who sadly has passed away. They really opened my eyes to leadership and, to their credit, recognized it in me and brought me into, hey, we're going to develop these skill sets and we're going to have a lot of fun. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I feel really fortunate to, I look at my role as president of RKE and CFS as I am the number one servant. I'm at the bottom, and everybody else I work for, we support and work for and with each other. So that's who I am, and that's what I'm about.
That's awesome. What a wonderful culture that you got an opportunity to come up in. I was actually kind of equally lucky myself in the sense that I was able to work with people who did a wonderful job of mentoring me and allowing me opportunities to further my career path. And so it's so great when you are surrounded by people who see something in you and help cultivate that. So I think that's terrific.
Absolutely. I couldn't echo and amplify that message any better. Agreed.
Yeah. And then there's always the pay it forward aspect of that too. And we'll talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. But I do want to ask you, because this particular episode is about women in our workplace. So what are some of the challenges that you faced early in your career? Because this is kind of still, even today, a little bit of a male dominated space. So what were some of those challenges that you faced early in your career, especially as a woman entering into this mostly male dominated space?
So I came from male-dominated industries, right? Whether it was finance, construction, landscaping, tree work. So for me, it was normal. I played on co-ed teams, in my youth. Even as an adult, I played on some co-ed teams. So it was, for me, in my experience, that's how I grew up. So if I walked into an industry with all women, I feel like that might be jarring to me because of my experience.
Sure.
And I don't mean to say that in a negative way, but when this question is posed to me, I have to say that, my experience has been in male-dominated industries. And the challenges that I faced early in my career, really, I want to say, was the learning curve and having a very strong feeling and sensation. I have to prove to people that I know what I'm talking about. Right. So I think that, and I don't know if that's specific to women. I feel like regardless of gender, that's anybody who enters an industry. But I did feel like I had to really work harder to prove myself. And I can't say that's specific to the pest management industry. I felt that same way in finance and construction and landscaping and any other, even, car rental, whatever it was that I was working in. I always felt like I had to work harder to prove myself. Now, I don't see that necessarily as a bad thing. I never looked at it as, I have to do this because I'm a woman. I just knew I wanted to be better and bring everybody up with me, regardless of who I was working with. How do we work as a team to be the best? Looking back on it, it really was an awesome experience. It really was, because I learned from not only a lot of men, but a lot of women too. And I think if I went back in time to ask my younger self what her biggest challenge is, she might be a little stressed and a little erratic and, oh my gosh, I have to learn all this stuff while I'm putting sales numbers up. And of course, hindsight's 2020. But it was really all happening exactly how it needed to happen. Outside of that, I really, the fabric of who I am, I look at people as people. And Simon Sinek has the greatest quote that I steal shamelessly all the time. We're human beings tethered to this earth by gravity. Regardless of gender, race, religion, whatever, we're all humans that are doing our best. And I firmly believe that. So that's how I can describe some of my challenges early on. I can't say that I look back on it with, man, that was a battle. It was really, I don't know if it was because of a male-dominated space or really just the technicality of our business.
Yeah, it sounds like you were too busy succeeding to worry about the way that the success was attained. I guess I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but it seems like that you were so busy focused on your future and your career that you weren't really, and I'm not trying to speak for you, but you weren't really too concerned with stereotypes or any of the other sometimes nonsense that gets attributed to this type of topic.
Totally. I became known as the redhead in pest control. That's actually how Hank found me. Was one of his clients said, "Hey, there's a redhead in pest control who's trying to take your business from you."
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay, I'll go with this and let's go." But no, listen, I like how you just summarized my diatribe there. That was very well said. And yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, good, good. So obviously you've had a good career path. You know, you started out in sales and now you're the president of a company. So I know you've probably seen a lot of change in our industry over that period of time. I know I've seen a ton of change myself. So how have you seen the industry change, or have you seen the industry change in terms of gender inclusion during your career path?
Yeah, so 18 years ago when I got into this space, I remember my first professional women in pest management industry meeting. I thought it was the coolest thing that it existed, and I was so excited to be a part of it. And I still love that it exists. I think the first meeting I ever went to had about maybe 20-ish people in the room, and the ladies in there were talking about the days where they started it and how there were only a handful of them. And it just makes me smile to think of that progress of opening this space to everyone, right? So not that it's been closed, but I think that humans, when we see people do things, we know it's okay. So it's like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
You know? So a few years ago, Ben, fast forward, I was at Legislative Day and they needed a room 3 times the size. 3 times the size. I mean, it was packed and it was amazing to see that growth in that period of time. You know, I've seen more women in leadership roles. When I first started, I saw a handful of women who owned companies and I really looked up to them. And I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I've seen more women in leadership, more women in sales roles, and I've also seen more women in specialist roles. I'd like to see more. I don't know how we do that as an industry, but I would like to see more. I think there's a trend happening. There's women entering these quote unquote blue collar spaces. You know, there's a lady down the street from me here in New Jersey who graduated high school, went to trade school. She's an electrician, loves it, like losing her mind with excitement every single day. There's another woman in my town who is going to school to do plumbing. So I think there is a shift happening, and in our industry, but also in other industries, that women can do these jobs too and do them just as good as their counterparts. So I think our industry needs all people, regardless of gender or ethnicity, because I believe that everyone brings a perspective, a unique perspective. Ben, you and I, we might have been in the same industry, totally different backgrounds, totally different human beings. We have some commonalities, I'm sure, but we individually, and even the folks who have listened, we've all been shaped differently. So we can all look at the same situation and think wildly different solutions. There's still solutions, but embracing that, I've seen that more in the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years than I had prior.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's absolutely wonderful. I mean, not to date myself, but I've been in the industry about 22 years, and I remember when I very first got into it, just being a simple technician for a pest control company. I mean, it was rare to see a female in that space. And I mean, it was always welcome. I mean, I never worked for an organization where there was any kind of animosity or anything like that. Everybody was always welcome. But because there were so few females in that corner of the industry, it caught your attention, so to speak. And now you fast forward 22 or so years later, and I agree with you. We've seen so many more women in our industry and in other industries, and it just seems so common to see that these days. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I agree with you. The job is the job. The job doesn't care, just like insects. When you're trying to kill insects, they don't care about finances. They don't care about, the economy. They don't care about insects, just want to eat food. And so that's why our industry is so recession proof. They don't care about our economy. They just want to eat our foods. That's why our industry is so recession proof, because the insects are always going to be there. It's kind of the same thing. The job is the job. It doesn't matter what gender you are or anything else. The job just needs to get done. And it's so awesome to see that the job can be done kind of by anybody who has a good work ethic. Yeah. And the gender doesn't matter to me.
Totally agree. I think that you hit the nail on the head. I think the pest management industry is for everyone. I mean, it truly impacts all human beings. One of the most profound statements I ever heard. I was in a seminar with Dr. Bobby Corrigan, and he put a question up on the screen. It was something to the effect of, what's the most domesticated animal on the planet? And the room went around. Somebody said dogs. Somebody said cats have been around longer than dogs. And then we've gotten this whole argument. And the answer was rodents. I think it was mice. Dr. Corrigan, if you're listening to this, I don't mean to butcher what you did, but I remember thinking that commensal rodents have traveled with humans forever and a day. And I think that's absolutely incredible. So I feel that our industry touches everyone in some facet of their life. There's not one human that hasn't swatted a fly
Yeah.
somewhere, right? And I think it's for everyone. I think that the industry is shifting towards not only welcoming that mindset, but also the way in which we do things, which I think is formulating from the diversity that's coming in. We're getting different thoughts on how do we do stuff? How can we make this better, more effective, more environmentally friendly, easier for our people, more effective for clients, all that stuff. So I think there's a lot of really incredible things on the horizon for our industry as a whole. And I'm really excited.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of the things that I like about our industry the most is there's so much opportunity for everybody. And every single day that I go to work is different than the previous day. There's not a lot of monotony in our industry at all. And I actually love the fact that there's not a lot of monotony.
Amen. Amen. And preach all day long. And, as you were saying that, and we were talking about the things that are shifting in our industry, I like to think that this is a result of really focusing on welcoming everyone, regardless of gender. I see paternal leave for new fathers, which is very typical for women getting, maternity leave. But
Yeah.
companies are adopting paternal leave for fathers, which is, I think, is a fantastic enhancement for families, which I also think is part of that gender inclusion that you referenced earlier in the call. So I think that's a fantastic ad for any company that's doing that to really help families out while they're having that transition.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing that you bring up. And I think that's wonderful too. It seems like a lot of industries in general, not just the pest control industry, but a lot of industries in general used to be more family focused, decades ago. And then it started to slide into just the dollar amount and projected incomes and all of those other things. And I think we lost focus of the family and the well-being of the employees a little bit along the way, maybe in the 80s and the 90s and even into the early 2000s. And now we're starting to see a shift back into making sure that the person themselves are well taken care of, that your employee is well taken care of, and that their family is well taken care of. And I mean, I don't have numbers or stats on this, but I just have to imagine that the productivity of a person has to increase significantly if they feel like they're taken care of by the company that they work for. I mean, it just has to be that way.
I don't have the stats on that either, but I do have experience with human behavior. And there's this awesome quote that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's great. Yeah.
And it's true. And, the care has to be authentic. You can't fake care because as humans, I think that I read somewhere that is the number one feeling or emotion that we can sense is authenticity.
Yeah.
Right. So everybody knows when you meet someone, in my experience, which again, I'm not an expert at this, fractions of seconds, you're making an impression You just get this gut feel or a sense that they're authentic or they're full of it. You
Oh
know what I
yeah.
mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. Intuition is very real and very powerful.
Absolutely. And you referenced the shift in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. It's amazing. My team, our leadership team, we do leadership books together over the course of an 8-week period. We take it apart and we talk it through and how we can apply it together and all the rest. Right now, we're reading something called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. And this book, Ben, if you haven't read it, it's fantastic. He goes into that exact history, how it all happened. And I think that you are right. This shift is happening because I don't mean to repeat myself, we're human beings that are tethered to this earth by gravity. We're doing the best we can for ourselves, for our families. And we go to companies to do that for our lives and to help create a better and safer world and all that good stuff. It did get lost. And all I can say is we're doing everything we can to bring it back.
Yeah, and people like you, and there are several other people in our industry in particular that I think are really focused on making sure that people feel welcome, they feel cared for in the company that they work for. I've seen it in several organizations, some of the people that I've interviewed, and then just some of the people that I work with. But yeah, it's really interesting. I think that there's, and again, I don't have the numbers, but I would imagine there's a direct correlation on employee retention when it comes to caring about the employee as well. Because, I think people are people. They're going to work hard, but they're not going to feel as tethered to any particular organization if that organization doesn't show them that they care. And it takes more than money to really show an individual that you care. You have to really invest in their future, and you really have to invest in their family time and their family, and you have to get to know them. And if you do all those things, people are going to be a lot less interested in moving on to a different company. So employee retention, I think caring about an employee, you have a much, much better employee retention than you do if you don't.
Yeah, you just triggered a thought that really the care of the people that you're around, the byproduct of that is exactly what everybody's going for, right?
Yeah.
All companies want their people to stay with them. All companies want to grow and see their people thrive, which essentially, in theory, makes the company thrive, right? When you've got productive and happy folks out there and safe people, safety all day long. When those things are in place, which sound easy, Ben, but it's not always easy.
Yeah.
Or simplified. When those things are in place, I find that more often than not, the results just take care of themselves. And to your point, you are going to have the people who, throughout our career, we come across who are going to be aces because that's who they are, regardless of the company. Regardless, they'll go anywhere and go with or without us, right? And that's okay. And then there's folks who may need that additional help. And, look, I was one of them. I was someone early on who needed that help and support. I worked really hard, but I did need words of affirmation. I needed somebody to say, this is good. Have you considered this? I needed to be fed that. And that came from the people who cared. It really did. And it's like the story of the teacher who stays late or the professor that stays late with a student or a coach or a trainer staying late with you. If you go through a course, Ben, I'm sure you've done it where you've taught courses and you stay afterwards and somebody's asking you a bunch of questions.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that's the care and love that you exude in not only what you're doing, but to help someone else. And that has lasting effects that I don't know if you need to be in quantum physics to measure that stuff, but I have a belief that when you care and show people you care, not just say it, but you actually do it. You put your money where your mouth is with tiny noticeable things. The most beautiful things can happen and the results will be there.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting, and I was going to ask you about mentorship too, but I wanted to key in on something that you said, talking about staying late and working with people and showing care and people doing that for you. And the thing that I find the most interesting is it's inspiring, meaning that the people who have put in the effort to help me in my career have inspired me to want to do that for other people who are maybe a little earlier on the journey than me. So having people stay late to help me makes me want to stay late to help others. And so it's a snowball effect. So just like you can have negative snowball effects, you can have very positive snowball effects too. So mentorship played a huge, huge role in my career. And if I would not have had an opportunity to have wonderful mentors in my career, I mean, who knows where I could have ended up.
Oh, amen, brother. That's right.
Talking about mentorship and kind of paying it forward a little bit here, what kind of advice would you give that young woman starting out in our industry, whether she's on the path that you're on, like wanting to get into an executive level, or whether she's just wanting to have a nice, stable career? What kind of advice would you give that person?
Yeah, so this is an easy question for me because I've been asked this before, and I'm happy to repeat it. I was told I should get a T-shirt that says Jess's 10 Commandments. And, I want to say this to everyone, not just men or women, but everyone out there. And I don't care what it is. I believe that my 10 Commandments are applicable regardless of gender or whatever the diversity is. If you're starting out in this industry, number one, never, ever, ever stop learning about all things: leadership, technical components of our business, human behavior, not just the behavior of the insects and rodents that we are mitigating for clients, humans. Study communication, study all of it, and keep learning, not just from the resources that, whether it's your company or you subscribe to different publications, what have you. Just learn. Always keep learning. And we have a phrase that one of our team came up with. We are students of the business. So always be a student of the business. Number two, speak less and listen more. Number three, know yourself. Number four, be and set the example. So even if you're new and if you're not sure, it's okay. You don't have to have all the answers. I joke around with the people that I work with that I outsource a lot of my memory to my email and Google and all that stuff because it's impossible to keep it all in our gray matter. So as you do go out there and set the example, know that it's okay to not know all the answers, and set the example that it's okay to phone a friend and ask questions so that you can keep learning. Number five, find a mentor and a coach. Seek those people out. And as you, in your mind, are thinking about who can mentor me, think about the people that you interact with where you get a feeling that they care, that they have wisdom or advice and knowledge that you can just brainstorm and have a conversation with and walk away with, oh, all right. I just, maybe a light bulb goes off, gives you a different perspective. But find a mentor, seek out a coach, and have fun with that. Number six, always command excellence. Always do not compromise on excellence with safety and with your work. Number seven, set goals and be obsessed with accomplishing them. There is never going to be a perfect time, ever. Number eight, don't wait for leadership, lead. You don't need somebody to tell you. Leaders look for people who lead. And if you have that instinct, or if you think that you can do it, give it a shot. Try it out. And if you have hesitation, call that mentor or that friend, bounce it off of them, and then dive in. And I think that amazing things will happen for you. Number nine, build trust and solid relationships. Life is about relationships. I know I can call you at any time. And because we built trust and we have a relationship built on what we've built it on with, I know I can rely on you when you say you're going to do something and all the rest. And you're an awesome guy, fun to talk to.
Well, thanks.
Great. Yeah. That's the point, is that, regardless of what you do, what role you're in, build trust and build solid relationships, because those end up being the most beautiful part of any career, regardless of what you're doing. And finally, and I think this is probably most important, every single day, smile, laugh, be kind, and have fun. Every day. So those are my 10 commandments. That's my advice for anyone who's starting out in this space, regardless of what you're looking to go after, and have fun with it.
Yeah, that definitely needs a T-shirt. That's terrific. I could not agree more with every single point that you just made there. I mean, that is absolutely fantastic advice. Yeah, I mean, you have to set your own goals. You can't wait around for other people to set your goals for you. You have to set your own goals, and you have to maintain your own integrity. I mean, it's important to ask for advice, but you have to be able to take that advice too. One of the biggest lessons that I learned early on in my career was to not be defensive. and accept criticism as long as it's open and genuine criticism that's intended to be constructive. I remember when I first started in the industry, my boss at the time gave me not a harsh employee review, but an honest employee review. And I immediately started to get defensive. And he stopped me and said, "Hey, wait a minute. You don't have to be defensive. I'm not telling you these things to hurt you. I'm telling you these things so you can work on these things and so you can improve. That's the goal of this." And that really struck a chord with me because I hadn't thought about it like that. I was looking at it just from a criticism perspective and not from a constructive perspective. And it really changed my aspect, and it really changed my entire career trajectory on how to be able to accept criticism openly and then how to work on things. And so then I started going out to my mentors and my bosses and other people and asking them, "Hey, I want to get to this next level. How do I get to that next level? What do I need to work on? How do I get there?" And boy, what a change that made for me in my career to be open and accepting to that information.
Yeah, I love that story that you just shared. That's a really good manager and leader who saw that you were exhibiting signs of essentially stress and defensiveness, which really doesn't help any situation, regardless of professional or personal,
Yeah.
right? When people get into defensive posture, that becomes difficult to come out of. But that person pointed out and they were honest and they honored you. If they were nice and didn't share honesty to make you feel good because they thought that was nice, they would have done you a disservice. So I love the way that you just described that and that the manager explained to you that I'm not here to harm you. I want to see the best in you. These are the things that I know you're capable of working on or whatever, and demonstrated that they believe in you. I'll share a story. I had a manager who taught me how to not do those things.
Yeah.
I had a manager, I had a slump. I was in a slump in sales, which I was not used to. That was not something I really took well to. So I was really, really down on myself. And that manager at the time, and I really like to believe he was probably doing the best that he could with what he was taught, got on the phone with me, and I had just gotten off of a phone call where I was declined a proposal, which it was just down, down, down. And this manager, he goes, "How'd that proposal?" Didn't get it. And I could hear it in his voice. He was pissed. I could just hear it. And he's like, "Well, you sound like you got to shake that off." And looking back on it 18 years, or 15 or however many years later, I can say, okay, they probably could have said, "Hey, you're being harder on yourself than any of us ever could be. Do whatever you need to do to shake this off. This is just a rut. It happens. And come on, that encouragement, right? That belief." They could have been dealing with stressors from their boss, which then trickled down to that conversation. We don't know. I think it's also important to know that our leaders are human beings as well, and they will make mistakes from time to time. So I like to think that was a learning experience for me, that I would never talk to someone like that if I heard someone who was really down on themselves because they really do care, I'm not going to get any further down on them. I got to lift them up and get them out of that rut, and I'll do whatever I can to pull them out. So I think on the contrary, and someone recently said this to me, that the leaders in your life can shape you I believe, for the good, because they're going to show you a really positive way of doing things. And sometimes they might show you a way that you look at it and it's like, maybe there was a different way we could have gone about that, but I get it. All right, I can do this and maybe change it a little bit,
Yeah. And that goes right back to one of the commandments that you talked about, which was be open to learning. It's important to not only be able to learn what to do, but also be able to learn what not to do. And so you can learn
and how to do it.
Yeah, yeah. So you can learn by other people's mistakes just as much as you can learn by your own. That's for sure. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I only really have one last topic or question that I wanted to ask you. I mean, obviously you are in a very high leadership position with RK now. What does that leadership role mean to you? I mean, what does leadership mean to you, and how do you continue to grow in your role?
Leadership to me is guidance. It's a foundation. It's reliable, consistent. And I believe that leadership has to have an element of care and love for, of course, yes, the business, but when I think of the business, I think of the people. And in our space, we are in the people business, period, end of story. We serve people internally with internal clients or colleagues and external clients, the people that pay us to get the job done. And leadership sets the stage for how, not the what, everybody knows what, but leadership sets the pace for how we do it and inspires the team around them to bring out the very best in them. That's what leadership means to me. I don't know if that's a crystal clear answer, but that's what it means to me.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of people look, and you said this earlier as well. I think a lot of people, when they think leadership, they think a person at the top. And you had made a comment earlier about leadership from the bottom. So you're viewing yourself at the bottom, lifting other people up. And I think that is exactly the reason why you have been so successful in your career, because of the 10 commandments that you live by and that you strive to live by. And then also just your viewpoints on leadership and what it means to people. What a heck of a career that you've made for yourself. I mean, it's absolutely awesome. It's difficult for anybody to get into a leadership role as you've done. And I mean, the fact that you've done it just through hard work and your ethics and your morals and your 10 commandments, which I'm going to need you to email me a copy of those 10 commandments now so I can post them on my wall somewhere so I can live by them. So that's great. But I mean, what a heck of a career you've had, Jess. And I cannot thank you enough for sharing your insight with us today. It's been absolutely enlightening, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing the future success, not only for you, but for also the company that you're leading.
Thank you so much for those kind words. Wow, I really appreciate that. And thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. And congratulations to you on your 6th season now. This is amazing.
Thank you.
I love that you're doing this. Yeah. I think that the podcast for our industry is needed. We need to hear the minds of the people that we're with and collaborate and come together to make it all better, safer, and just the very best for all the things that we go after. So thank you for that.
Oh, hey, I'm very, very happy to do it. All right. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, Ben.
What an inspiring conversation. Thank you, Jess, for sharing your journey and for the example you continue to set for women and men across the fumigation industry. Leadership isn't about fitting into a mold. It's about showing up with purpose, vision, and courage. And when we open more doors for women in fumigation and pest control, we raise the standard for everyone. And that brings us to the end of Season 6 of Dagish America Presents. We hope this series on leadership has given you practical tools, fresh ideas, and the inspiration to grow, not just in your role, but in your impact. And as always, we want to hear from you. Please send your questions, comments, or topic suggestions to podcast@dagishamerica.com, or feel free to connect with us on your favorite social media platform. Until next season, I'm Ben Harrell. Thanks for listening, and keep leading with purpose.